Hello, everyone. This is Ms. Graham and Ms. Cisco here to teach you a knowledge story today. Our goal is I can use a graphic organizer to describe the events of a story. So, before we get started, this is going to be the graphic organizer that we are going to use. This is called a somebody wanted so but then chart. This chart helps the readers summarize and retell main events in a story. We have used these charts many of times this year. It may look a little bit different, but it helps us retell a story. These charts can also help to identify cause and effect of events in the story, so the reason something is happening. So today's story is called The Shot Heard Round the World, and our purpose today is listen carefully to find out what happened that led to the shot heard around the world. Let's get started. After the Boston Tea Party, King George sent thousands of British soldiers to Boston to make sure the colonists obeyed the king's orders, or to make sure that the colonists did as the king ordered them to do. They swarmed the streets of the city in their fancy red uniforms with shiny buttons, earning themselves the name Redcoats. They carried weapons with them everywhere they went. This made the people of Boston very angry. The city no longer felt like home to them. They did not know who to trust. Spies, or people who secretly kept watch on other people to try to figure out what they were up to, spread out all over the city. British soldiers disguised as colonists and colonists disguised as British soldiers. There were lots of whispering in the streets as people kept secrets from one another. It was not very pleasant, and it was even a little scary. Paul Revere was a silversmith living in Boston. As a silversmith, he kept quite busy making and repairing silver dinnerware, candlesticks, and jewelry. A sign with a silver pitcher hung outside his shop on the town square. In those days, it was common for shopkeepers to hang a sign above their door with pictures of what could be bought inside their shop. What do you think Paul Revere had in his shop? One day, the door to his shop flew open and a friend rushed over to Revere's side. The two men were both members of the Sons of Liberty, the group of patriots who had emptied tea into the Boston harbor. Ever since the Boston Tea Party, the colonists of Massachusetts had been hiding weapons, gunpowder, and cannonballs in the neighboring towns. The British, afraid of the colonists, might be planning to attack them. They captured the weapons whenever they learned where they were hidden. So why do you think the colonists might have started hiding these materials, these weapons? Now, as the two men huddled together in the back of Revere's shop, his friend whispered that the British were planning to raid the colonist storehouse of weapons in the town of Concord. The British were to travel that night, he said, but nobody knew whether they would march there by land or choose the shorter route and sail on a boat by the sea. The patriots knew they must somehow warn the militia in Concord that the British were coming by the sea. A militia is an army of ordinary people that are not trained to be soldiers. Revere and the others spied or secretly watched over the British to discover the soldiers' plans. When Revere learned the troops were coming by sea, he arranged for a signal to be given, or a secret code. His friend was to climb up the bell tower of the Old North Church, light one lantern and hang it on the belfry or the bell tower if the British are traveling on foot by land. Revere told his friend, but if they are traveling on a boat by sea, hang two lanterns. Paul Revere left his family and crept down to the banks of the Charles River. He quietly crossed the river in a boat to a spot where he borrowed a horse from his friend and fellow patriot. Paul Revere mounted the horse, tipped his hat in thanks to the patriots, and sped away. What do you notice in that picture? How many lights do you see? Ooh, what does that mean? As he galloped through towns along the way, Revere shouted to the colonists in their beds, "The redcoats are coming! The redcoats are coming!" All around him, shutters were thrown open as people began waking in the middle of the night. When Revere reached the town of Lexington with word of the approaching British troops, men hurried from their homes, joining one another with their muskets in the middle of the town. These men, known as Minutemen, because they were expected to be ready to fight at a minute's notice, slept with their muskets and gunpowder beside their beds. Revere was joined by a second rider, William Dawes, who had been sent on the same mission, but following a different path to Lexington. At dawn, the British reached Lexington. The Minutemen were farmers and shopkeepers, volunteers for their country, not trained soldiers. So volunteers choose to do a job without being paid. They looked ragged next to the well-dressed British soldiers, or redcoats. In the confusion of the early morning hours, a shot was fired. Others fired back, and fighting continued throughout the morning. Finally, the Minutemen were able to force the British to return back to Boston, firing at them from behind rocks, trees, and fences all along the way. To this day, no one knows who shot the first shot that day. Nerves had been on edge since the Boston Tea Party, so it was not surprising that guns went off. But that first shot was the beginning of a long war between the British and their American colonies. It is known as the shot heard round the world because not only did it change life in the colonies, but it also changed things around the world in Great Britain all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. That long war became known as the Revolutionary War. Could it be that the shot heard round the world rang out so loudly from that Massachusetts colony that it actually reached King George's ears that April morning? What do you think? All right, so let's answer some discussion questions. So what is the main topic of this read aloud? Think about it. What is this story all about? Paul Revere helped get the Minutemen prepared to fight the British, and the Revolutionary War started with the battle at Lexington. So who were the Redcoats? The Redcoats were the British Army. Who were the Minutemen? The Minutemen were colonial militia. And think about that one. The Minutemen were not trained. They had to be ready within a minute or so. Why do you think Paul Revere warned colonists that the Redcoats were coming? So why would he give them a warning? Because he was a patriot. He wanted them to be prepared. So what does the phrase, one if by land and two if by sea, mean? This means it's referring to a signal. One lantern meant the Redcoats were coming by the land, and two meant they were coming by the sea. So if you think back to that one picture, and there were two lanterns lit, that means they were coming by the sea. So this is our somebody wanted but so then chart. On this chart, you are going to fill it in. So on your paper, you can just write somebody on the left side, and then write who the story's about. What did they want? So write the word wanted, and then write what they wanted. But what? What happened? So, and then write, so what did they do? And then. What was the outcome? What happened at the end? So you can pause here, copy this chart down, and then if you have any questions, let us know. But our goal today was I can use a graphic organizer to describe the events of a story. You can send us pictures of your amazing work. We would love to see it, and we would love to give you some feedback on it. Let us know if you have any questions.